Jeremiah 29 verse 11 is one of the most quoted verses in the Bible, often used to provide hope and reassurance during difficult times. It speaks of God's divine plan for his people and offers a promise of prosperity, protection, and a bright future. "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11 NIV. This verse is a direct statement from God to his people, reminding them that even in their struggles, he has a greater plan at work. In this detailed study, we will explore its historical context, deeper meaning, and how we can apply it to our lives today. Context of Jeremiah 29 verse 11. Historical background. The book of Jeremiah was written during a turbulent time in Israel's history. The Israelites had been exiled to Babylon as a result of their disobedience and idolatry. The people were devastated, feeling abandoned by God, and uncertain about their future. Jeremiah, a prophet of God, sent a letter to the exiles, Jeremiah 29, instructing them to settle in Babylon, build homes, plant gardens, and seek the welfare of the city they were in, Jeremiah 29 verses 4 to 7. God's message was clear. The exile would last 70 years, Jeremiah 29 verse 10, but it was not the end of their story. God had not forsaken them. He had a future and a plan for them. Their suffering was temporary, and restoration would come. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 was given to a people who had lost everything, offering them hope in the midst of their despair. Breaking down the verse. 1. "For I know the plans I have for you." God begins with a declaration of certainty. I know. This is significant because while the Israelites felt lost and abandoned, God was assuring them that he had not forgotten them. The word plans, makashaba in Hebrew, means thoughts, intentions, or purposes. This means that God's plans for us are not random or accidental. They are intentional and carefully designed. 2. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. The word prosper comes from the Hebrew word shalom, which means more than just financial success. It means peace, completeness, and well-being. God's plans are always for our ultimate good. This does not mean life will be without suffering, but rather that his plans will lead to our spiritual and eternal benefit. 3. Plans to give you hope and a future. Hope is a powerful force, and in times of suffering, it is hope in God's promises that sustains us. God was telling the Israelites that their exile was not the end. He had a future of restoration and blessing prepared for them. This same promise extends to us today. God's plans will lead to a future filled with purpose and hope. Application in our lives. God's plans are greater than our circumstances. No matter what struggles we face, we can trust that God is working behind the scenes for our good. Even when we don't understand his timing, his plans are always perfect. Trusting God in uncertain times. The Israelites had to trust God even when they didn't see immediate results. We too must have faith that God is leading us toward his promises. Hope in difficult seasons. When life feels overwhelming, this verse reminds us that God's plan includes hope and a future. Instead of focusing on hardships, we should focus on the promises of God. God's definition of prosperity. Prosperity in God's eyes is about spiritual growth, peace, and fulfillment in him, rather than just material wealth. Conclusion. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 is a verse of hope, reassurance, and divine purpose. Though originally spoken to the exiled Israelites, it remains a promise that God's plans for his people are always good. If you ever feel lost, remember this. God has not abandoned you. He has a purpose for you. His plans will lead you to hope and a future.